Excellent. Well, looks like we have everyone on here. Um, Very excited today to dive into AI and executive search, and we have a very distinguished panel of leaders in executive search about how they're applying AI in this space. There's a lot of conversations about this topic going on right now. A lot of excitement, also some fear, and a lot of opportunity. And in particular, executive search is an extremely high stakes application. Within the talent acquisition space, executive search is kind of the premium end of the market. Placing a wrong staff level hire can maybe cost 3x their salary. Placing a wrong executive, can actually be catastrophic. So that's why companies tend to work with industry leaders like we're talking to today, who have been on this journey of AI adoption to really optimize this entire process and deliver the best results. And we're excited to dive into some questions. Um, we do, I believe, have a Q&A capability on the Zoom, so please feel free to post questions, and if there's time at the end, we'll include some questions from the audience. And just to kick it off, tell you about myself, and then we're going to go around and introduce our panelists. My name is Alex Bates. I'm founder and CEO of HelloSky, which is a precision talent intelligence company focused on executive search. And so we've spent 5 years optimizing a data science platform on this very, high bar to deliver, optimal candidates for executive search. And as I'm sure everyone on the panel can attest, you get some very difficult needle in the haystack searches. And so we've been working on a tool set for that. Just to kick off some context, I'm going to do a quick share of some quotes that have been circulating. Some of you might have seen circulating on social media. So let me do a quick share on Zoom here. Share screen. Okay, do share. Okay. Sorry, let me switch to the Zoom window here. One second on share, apologies. Actually, I'm just going to read off these quotes. These are from, the first quote is actually from the CEO of Adobe that recently said, well, I'll give you the name. So Shatana Nanaru said, people who use AI, it says, people who use AI will replace people who don't use AI, just like people who use automation or computers will be replaced by those who didn't. And there's another quote from Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. You're not going to lose your job to AI, but you might lose your job to someone who uses AI. So I think really the opportunity here is to augment how we approach these very complex problems. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So now let me go through our panelists and do an intro. Bring this bios up here. Awesome. So to begin with, I wanted to introduce our first panelist. Bring it up here. Awesome. So our first panelist, Jared Cohen, is Chief Operating Advisor at New Advisory Partners. And Jared, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself and your firm.
Yep. Everybody, Jared from New Advisory Partners. As Alex said, I'm the COO here. We're about a 35-person executive search firm. We're a couple of years old. We were built actually to take advantage of technology and AI and try to move the industry forward a bit and provide a better, higher quality, faster, more efficient service using that. Some of that is AI, some is just basic tech. I have a background in, it's a long, weird background, but in finance. I was a corporate lawyer for a while. I worked at a bunch of tech startups. I ran a beer brewery, and now I'm in executive search. So it's been a nice trip. And I'm involved in some other startups, helping with some tech things and some advising and some investing.
Awesome. Excellent. Next up, we actually have a originally we are going to have Kirk Hauser, and we actually have Adam Boone, who is standing in for Kirk. And Adam, if you want to give an intro, that'd be great.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having us here, and thanks to Hunt Scanlon for hosting the webinar. I'm CMO of Bespoke Partners, and if you don't know Bespoke, we're the largest firm that's devoted exclusively to executive search for private equity. So building out portfolio company teams, particularly at the C-suite level. We have placed nearly 2,000 C-suite and VP level executives for the most active investors in PE in software and SaaS firms in the US. And collectively, our placed executives have orchestrated more than 200 company exits, totaling more than $600 billion in value. So we're very, very attuned to the talent thesis for private equity. My own background, I come out of the startup world. I had a successful career in software, telecom, and networking equipment. I did 2 turns for Sequoia Capital in leading their marketing programs for one of their startups with successful exits, and also worked with Bessemer, Greylock, and then did a bunch of joint ventures with Cisco, Oracle, Microsoft, and other sort of tech industry luminaries. That's my background.
Alex, you're muted.
Apologies on that. And next up, we have John Bomer, if you'd love to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I've been doing executive search for startup software and technology companies for 35 years, about 500 searches. I founded Excellent 15 years ago. We're a true boutique search firm. I have worked on the inside at Internet Capital Group. I've worked for 2 global search firms in Korn Ferry and Russell Reynolds. But at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and this is my 4th and final executive search firm. The tech space that we serve is typically enterprise and SMB SaaS, as well as internet companies of 50 to 100 different flavors.
Excellent. Thanks so much. So let's dive into the questions here. So the first question is one a lot of people have expressed interest in terms of AI adoption and maturity. AI is, of course, a journey from just sort of prompting to more mature, fully integrated workflows. So first question we want to start with is where would you place your firm on the AI adoption maturity curve from experimentation to fully integrated workflows? And Jared, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned before, we are built on trying to use tech and AI in every way possible. So I'd say that I'd consider ourselves farther down the road toward integration. I think with this stuff, you always feel behind because every day there's something new. Every day there's some new innovation, there's a new use case. And so we do everything we can to stay ahead of it and to build, buy, modify the best software as fast as we can. In reality, it's just impossible to keep up. So there's nothing you can really do. But we are doing all the things that you just mentioned. We are trying to find and buy the best software out there, like I said before, both tech and AI, but a lot of AI stuff to use. We also are modifying some of the software we use to add AI features on top of them. And in some cases, building custom things using OpenAI's API or other tools. So I'd say I think I'd consider ourselves fairly advanced, not to pat ourselves on the back too hard, but again, we really do prioritize it as a fundamental thing that does separate us and make us good at what we do. I do think that a lot of this will just become standard for the industry, so maybe we're a little bit ahead. I could be wrong, but I would say we're probably a little bit ahead of the curve. But I do expect a lot of stuff to become standard, whether it's use of things like HelloSky or other tools. And there's just a lot out there. It's really about getting through some of the marketing language and actually getting to the use cases of where to use it. But overall, we really do push it, and we try our best to stay ahead of the curve and really be adopting and really testing. We try to test everything we can to see what's going to work best, and then get specific with the use cases, which I'm sure we'll talk about afterwards.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Maybe pass it over to Adam if you want to cover some questions as well.
Yeah, sure. I thought Jared expressed it well. It is moving very, very fast, and staying at the bleeding edge, as it were, can be a challenge. We are at the top level of maturity in terms of adoption of AI. Very similar to what Jared said, I was actually brought to Bespoke in order to tech enable the firm. And AI is absolutely central to that mission. And we've been using it now for around 4 years, and have built out what is the central to all of our searches is what we call our executive index, which is a platform that maps the entire software executive market, all nearly 700,000 executives who have had any hand in growing a software company in the United States over the past 15 or so years. So we use it in every single search that we do. It is a central touch point for everything that we do across all stages of search. So I would level us at the very most mature end of adoption. But 100% agree with what Jared said. It's moving fast, and you have to have a real sort of innovation and experimentation mindset to really work through which tools are going to work best for you in your process.
Thanks so much. That's awesome. John, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? AI and its effect on executive search. So when it comes to research, sure. I mean, thanks to players like HelloSky, it's been a pretty extraordinary upgrade from where we were previously. But, I've read a lot of pretty wild claims that search firms make in terms of what artificial intelligence can do. And so I have felt compelled to speak with folks who have literally written a book on AI. And what they tell me is that in the executive recruitment world, we're still highly limited by the data that's available. There's a whole lot of data out there in terms of what a person or a company has been able to accomplish over a period of time, but there's very little how data. So meaning how exactly did the executive get the what done, or how exactly did the company get the what done? As a result, you can't truly have visibility into exactly how an executive performed in prior roles. You can only have access into what was accomplished while the executive was in the role. And I'm thankful for that because honestly, if that how data was available, I think our industry would be greatly impacted, right? So lots and lots of what data, not lots of how data yet. So we've used it anywhere you can in terms of the what data. But again, that's been limited, and it's also limited by the fact that LinkedIn, of course, even though that is also what data, doesn't have an open API to enable access to all of that information easily and concisely. So that's sort of where we stand at the moment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And let me give one little plug. All you guys have adopted, purposeful tool in the space, but on top of that, developed your own proprietary know-how on top of it. So I would place all of you at the top end of that maturity curve. I think, there's a lot of firms out there that say, oh, we use AI because we use a note taker and we prompt ChatGPT. All three of your firms are a much higher sophistication in the spectrum. So I just want to give that little plug right there. Awesome. So with that, we'll move to the next question. And I think that's an important theme because, for us as an AI company, we do see wild claims that make all the headlines about replacing everything. And I think this is a clear industry where there's always going to be a huge role for executive search in this process.
Let's hope.
Yeah, and Alex, I think it's an important point that we're still here to provide a service, right? They don't care how much we use tech. What they care is that they get the right person in the right role. So I think it's very easy to wave your hands and talk about marketing and tech and all these things, but eventually you're doing the same thing. They don't care what's behind the curtain. So I think it is something to keep in mind of what are we still doing here? And you ultimately have a job to do for the client. How you do it is up to you.
100%. No, it's a really great point. The day ever comes where someone tries to click a button and CEO walks in the door, I would not want to with that tool.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, well, that is a good dovetail into the next question. What are the biggest barriers to adoption in executive search? And this could cover human factors, it could cover technology, it could cover both. And how did you overcome them? Maybe Adam, we'll start with you on that one.
Sure, yeah. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, we have AI now fully baked into all the different stages of our search process where it makes sense and where we see it as bringing value. And that is around, generating efficiencies and really amplifying the capacity of our team. And first and foremost, you see that in our research team. And so our executive index I was describing earlier, which maps out the talent market, they use it for identifying memberships, figuring out the potential talent pool for a given role. And the barrier there was, of course, how they'd been doing that before and what was the present method of operations that they operated under. The good news is, and how we overcame that, is that we have a culture of innovation. We have a culture of experimentation, and we empower people to experiment, try new things, and they never get penalized if they fail. We have very much a very kind of Silicon Valley oriented type of culture that is fail forward and figure out what works and move on. That's very much what we're about. So it really was getting the executive index stood up, making sure that it was, as bulletproof as we could make it, then getting people using it, getting our research team to start using it and really assembling the memberships and figuring out what the executive talent pool looked like, and then learning from that. And once they saw the power of it and what it was able to unlock for them, adoption was simple.
Excellent. Jared, would you like to take that question as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I think what Adam said is certainly right on, that it is a lot of these people are doing these jobs for a lot of years. And so it's always hard to change behaviors. We actually been doing an AI course with some of our clients to talk them through how we use AI and some other ways they can use AI. And whether it's executive search or really any job, I think there are some ways that you have to change behavior to move forward with the world. I think people talked about some other internal tools before, but it used to be pen and paper, and then it was the computer, and then it was the internet, and now it will be AI. And so there's always something to adopt and adapt to. And so the way we think about it is that, and this goes to Adam's point also, it's really about creating the culture. You just have to be talking about it, adding it to your meeting agendas, showing it from the top down. Everyone needs to be adopting these things and using these things. Implementing triggers to make sure that you are triggering this action, right? It's hard to change behavior. Generally, you just follow your behavior every time, but you need some way to make sure you're not. And so somehow you need triggers to be doing these things a certain way. And then providing the team training and support, because obviously these things are new and you'll get a wide variety of different levels of tech savviness. Some people will pick it up and they'll run with it. It'll be great. Some will need more, so you need to provide that. And then we think about incentives and how to make sure that people do see the value they can get from it, from being better at their jobs, doing it more quickly, and finding other ways to incentivize them. But part of the incentive is just showing them how valuable it can be for their jobs, and the incentive can then be internally driven for them to say, I can be better at my job if I have this thing. So that's how we think about it, and that's what we help our clients to get through when we do talk about AI and our adoption and their adoption.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really interesting about the culture component, embracing experimentation and not sort of giving penalties for that. In my career with technology, there's a learning curve where there's a productivity dip, and then you get the productivity spike. But if you don't embrace that, right, you don't get to that spike. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that's well said. It's in part also because it initially when you start, it costs more time, right? It doesn't start saving you time right away. First, there's I need to put in some more work. I need to learn this thing. You might even do the work twice. You might do it on LinkedIn and HelloSky first just to really get how it works. But it starts paying off fast once you get through that first level.
Absolutely. For us, a tech company with developers, at first, even AI for development is a productivity dip, and people are like, this tool's broken. But then actually, after you struggle through, learn strengths and weaknesses, then you finally get the spike. So
yeah, totally.
Similar challenges, different industry.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, John, I'll jump to the next question here under use cases and best practices. What parts of the executive search lifecycle would you say have benefited most from research, outreach, shortlisting, or something else? Do you want to?
Yeah. Again, thanks to you guys, HelloSky, that has advanced our research capabilities extraordinarily. And it's not just because of AI, but also, quite frankly, and I'm not trying to be a commercial here for HelloSky, but having you as a guy who has used every tool, including 3x5 cards in the early 90s, if I'm going to completely date myself. And I started when I was 8, by the way, in case somebody was curious. But your metadata is extraordinarily more expansive than anything else out there. The fact that I can now find out what candidates have worked in the revenue ranges I'm looking for, in the capital raising ranges I'm looking for. I mean, as far as I know, and maybe I'm missing something, no one else has that capability. And so research has been by far the most impacted. We use AI for other things, writing, not spec writing, and not assessments, because it still needs, thank God, it still needs a human's capabilities. But again, thanks to you guys, research has been really terrific. It has cut our time in less than half.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Super helpful. Jared, I'll pass it up to you.
Yeah, I think John, and by the way, John, you have a great radio voice. I feel like you should be on the air more often.
Thanks. That's my next career.
Right.
For sure.
Right. I think to John's point, I think we often find the same kind of thing. It's not the highest value tasks where I think humans will do this for a long time. Then to John's point also, I think that's a good thing. And I think we're humans are still human for now. So a lot of research for sure, a lot of automating of processes, moving data between systems. And even to John's point, and Alex, to the point of HelloSky, not everything is AI, right? And the innovation that John mentioned a second ago isn't even AI based, right? It's just a better use of data that LinkedIn doesn't do. So combining company data with people data, and then maybe AI is part of some of this cleaning of data and processes, but just getting that data to work better together and giving me a better form to search with. And then obviously you can add AI on top of that to do some more manual AI review. But some is just using tech better to do those kinds of things. But overall, it really is a lot of those, like I said, moving data between systems, the research for sure. It's a lot of that hours and hours of busy work that AI can then make much smoother. In many cases, do faster. In many cases, do for you. And obviously, as agents start coming and you have AI assistants and an MCP, model context protocol, where things can take action for you and connect to more systems, that will make all our lives easier. And again, even whether it's AI or not, I think we'd all be happier if LinkedIn spoke better to all these other different systems, and HelloSky spoke. And HelloSky does, to be fair, does a much better job than LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as the example because it's the worst. It plugs into almost nothing. But if these systems just talk better together, that would help. But AI can help with that, right? AI can take disparate systems and data and help it talk better and become more of a data lake. Like different kinds of data can come together better, and you can analyze it better with AI. So I think, to echo John, it's a lot of that more busy work, more research work, and it's important work, but it's not the highest value work that I think humans will do and are doing for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. Adam, you want to cover the same?
Yeah, I can echo what both John and Jared have said. Definitely on the research side of things, there's just a massive amount of value that AI and applying it brings. The executive index I've been talking about, which, by the way, the HelloSky is one of the sources that feeds into that, an incredibly valuable part of what we do with the index and in the bringing together all these different data sources with our proprietary model then, and allowing the research team to use that and get deep visibility into the executive's experience much more than they ever had before. That's resulted in around 50% larger memberships as we're working through the initial stages of a search. It also has cut our time to reach 100 candidate memberships by 44%. So massive, massive compression of the amount of time it takes to conduct research. I'll also mention that we've started applying it. Just yesterday, we announced Calibrator, which is a dynamic scorecarding application that sits on top of our index and allows us to work live with the client to see how a membership changes as you flex on scorecard parameters. It's extremely powerful, uses AI augmentation to understand adjacencies and step up potential and that sort of thing. So absolutely seeing it apply in all those places. But I want to double down on what the guys have been saying here, which is that there are absolutely key aspects of the search process where AI should never be applied, at least not in any form that I see AI today or in the near future here. Being able to assess individuals, being able to engage, being able to understand their career paths, being able to really connect to them as humans. No AI is ready for that, and probably won't be, at least not in my lifetime. The phrase I coach my team on is, let's let AI do the heavy data lifting and let the humans human, right? That's how I talk to my team about it. We are still humans providing a professional service to other humans, bringing in other humans. So let's let the humans human.
Couldn't agree more. As an AI vendor, I mean, humans, I think, spend 1 to 2 years learning body language before you ever learn to speak or communicate. And AI is not trained on that, needless to say. So there's just so much that goes into understanding a person, their behavioral profile. So makes a lot of sense. And that's a good dovetail to the next section on human in the loop. So we'll start with a question here. John, I'll actually start with this one. So for behavioral or psychological skills like being a team player, storyteller, culture fit, obviously a lead in from the prior comments, but do you use AI or focus on assessment or a mixture of both?
Yeah, again, thankfully, no. At the end of the day, if companies and executives were to write books about how they did what they did, then we're all toast, right? But I don't see that happening in anytime soon. I don't know why it would ever happen, but if they did that, that's how you would unseat us from what we do, is to truly understand how and why a candidate or a company did what they did. But until then, that's all human. That's all, based on our experience and what we've done for as long as we've done it. And so thankfully that I don't see that happening. I mean, look, with quantum computing and AI and ML in the next 10, 15 years, maybe, but again, that how data has to come out somehow first. And I don't know how that or why that would come out.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I am seeing a growing list of questions from the audience. So once we get through our questions, we'll dive into some of those, which touch on some of these topics. So I'll jump to the next question, somewhat related, still in the human loop section. Where do you draw the line between what AI should handle versus what requires human judgment? Adam, maybe we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, there always is that line. I again sort of coach the team to say AI should be the co-pilot, never the pilot. And by that I mean you need to be thinking about running the search, and doing everything around assessing that individual, to looking at culture, looking at potential fit, around management style, looking at things like KPIs and the track record that executive had in the past versus what the client is going to want in the role around their value creation plan. All those factors are things that, as John very aptly said, at present level of AI technology, no AI is going to be able to really assess that in any sort of meaningful way. So again, sort of thinking through the grunt level data collection and parsing and connecting those kind of simple dots about executive backgrounds and what they do, and then their potential fit for a role. AI can help with that. But the actual filtering and prioritization and thinking through scorecards and where they fit and that sort of thing is still very much a human part of the process. And that's where humans should be taking over.
Awesome. Jared, you want to cover that one as well?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer. I think I use the same term all the time with AI as your co-pilot. I think, and I get a lot of these questions when we do that AI course of people asking, what do I use it for? And where are the lines in these things? And I think in general, AI is used for your partner. It doesn't replace you in almost anything. And you need to be checking it, and you can't trust it. Don't let it do the really important stuff because it will make mistakes. It will hallucinate and just get things wrong. And the way I think we think about it here is that, as I said before, we have one goal, which is to put the right person in the right role and obviously keep our clients happy. And you can use AI however you want, as long as that goal comes out. Obviously, there are ethical things to keep in mind, but for the most part, use it as your co-pilot to achieve that goal. Make sure you are always focused on that goal. What does that mean? Know when to trust it, know when not to trust it, and know what tasks to use it for. To the point, I think Adam and John made this earlier, and you too, Alex, we should always be testing things and experimenting and pushing the envelope and trying to find new ways to use it. But we should never lose sight of what are we here to do, and why is the client hiring us?
Excellent. Oh, John?
Alex, yeah, I just thought of something I should have thought of earlier. One of the ways we use AI, so I've been a student of interview questions for 35 years, right? I literally have a book built over 35 years. So it's rather thick, of interview questions, depending on the role, the particular features of the role, whatever. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get at is that you can use AI effectively in helping you create new and inventive questions, interview questions, under certain circumstances that are actually quite effective. I have had a lot of fun working with AI to do that. It's amazing what it can come up with creatively and effectively, honestly.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, help guide the questioning, but then still have the humans do the assessment part. Awesome. Well, this leads into our next section on human factors and incentive alignment. Some controversy with this topic. Jared, maybe we'll start with you. How do you incentivize teams to use AI effectively, especially when it changes the way they work for years?
Yeah, it's such a fundamental question to what we're doing. And as I think Adam mentioned before also, I think it's so fundamental to culture and building our culture around this stuff. I mentioned some of these things when I talked about how we talk to our clients and how we do build a culture and implement these things here. But I think the ultimate incentive is education. It's helping people understand the value of this thing for them, helping them feel comfort that they're not being replaced, certainly not tomorrow. And whatever they do, it'll be many, many years from now, if ever. So I think it really is helping them understand how to use AI, why to use AI. And at the main point, I think maybe Alex, you said this at the beginning, of this is the future of your role. Your role is going to be tech and AI powered. It already is somewhat. It's going to get just more so. You can't decide what tools to use if you're not going to be the best at your job. You could go back to pen and paper. You can go back to an abacus if you want to. But ultimately, your job is to be as good at your job as possible. And the way to do that today is by using tech and especially AI in these ways. And so what's it going to mean for you? Maybe you'll handle more, and I'm thinking about different roles in the company, but let's say it's a researcher. Maybe you'll handle more roles. You'll get them done faster. You'll have AI be your co-pilot, like we said before, about helping to get you more names, more different kinds of candidates with different kinds of criteria more quickly. So it has a lot of ways to empower you. But I think, like I said, it comes to education about how to use it, why to use it, and how it makes you better at your job and actually serves you to do it versus it being a threat to you. And then I think that's the right kind of person will be driven by that because they're internally driven to just be the best they can be at their role.
Excellent. Yeah, Adam, you want to cover that question as well?
I can't do any better than what Jared just said in terms of describing that mindset. He really expressed it beautifully. What I just add is that it again is all part of the culture, and we hire for that, right? So if we have someone who is a foot dragger, who isn't going to be embracing AI and all the tools and be willing to experiment and demonstrate that intellectual curiosity, they're not working for us. And so it's pretty simple. We hire for that culture, we reward that culture, we incentivize for and have a very clearly expressed culture and cultural norms around that. So
excellent. I do have a growing list of questions from the audience. I'm just going through here. John, anything you want to further add, or
yeah, I just one other point. So to Jared's point about education, so there's no need to incentivize anybody because everybody wants to use it. Everyone wants to learn how to do it. It's the education piece. So we're constantly sending folks on our team to classes to learn all the different aspects of AI, because let's face it, there is so much information out there, right? And that has been very effective with all of the free and low priced courses that everybody's offering these days. You'd be crazy not to jump on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll add one more point on the incentive point, that if the incentive is not, the real incentive should be to be great at their current job, right? To get the names and find the right names and have the right relationship with the client. Yeah. And so this should really be feeding that. It shouldn't be like separately, I'm going to incentivize you to learn AI, because it's kind of a misdirection. The whole point of all of this stuff is to make us better at our job. So if the real incentive is this is going to make you better at what you are doing and what we're here to do.
And it's more fun.
Yeah, right. Certainly, right. If you're, especially some of those roles, like this is going to do a lot of that busy work where you're sitting going through hour after hour, day after day, getting AI and tech to help you, you're going to do a better job more quickly.
Exactly.
Excellent. I'm going to just splice in a couple audience questions and then we'll jump back. Now, this one could be controversial, so if anyone wants to opt in, if you want to opt out, totally kosher. This is the first one that came in from the audience here. How do the emergent technology tools or your firm mitigate, aggregate, or evaluate bias?
Mhm.
Anyone wants to jump in on that?
I'm happy to address that because it is something that we're asked about by clients when they're kind of exploring how we use AI or asking our advice on how they should use AI. And the concern there, if I'm thinking about this along the same lines as the person asking the question, is if you're training your model based on the search work and the placements and the candidate pools and everything that you've used to date, well, you run the risk of perpetuating any sort of bias or patterns that you've used in the past. If the model learns from what you've done, then you end up running the risk of just doing more of the same. That could potentially introduce bias. That's why we make a point with our own modeling, and the way we built out our proprietary model is to incorporate a wide range of different data sources and then making sure that we are seeing the full universe of potential candidates out there and coming up with the broadest and most flexible ways of filtering them. An example is we use an AI module that will give us what we call a nudge around a candidate. And that might be, say, that we're looking for someone in cybersecurity. But the nudge provided by AI might be that, hey, here are adjacent industries to cybersecurity that have skills that can transfer in to cybersecurity. That broadens the pool to step ups and potentially transferable skill sets with executives that we could bring in that in our traditional approach to search, we might not have even thought of, right? So that nudge is provided by AI and it allows us with our tool to avoid bias.
Excellent. Anyone else want to touch that, Jared?
I just think in the long term, AI is going to be a force for good that actually does reduce bias because, and to Adam's point, if you do a good job with the models and the training and the data, it will, and again, that's fundamental, right? Doing that good job, it'll remove that from the system, right? Because the system won't be based on the biases that we have as humans. And like this, some of this stuff is pretty far away, right? I think that, and John said this before also, we don't use a lot of AI for assessments yet. I think that's not so soon. I think there's a lot of complications with that. But I think as we go farther into the future, I think we will get more help with that. And I think it'll actually be a force for good versus a force for reinforcing the past issues.
Excellent. Okay, so another question that came in here. This one it's kind of more of a focusing question. We touched on it earlier. Actually, this is one that, again, you might get too much into areas I'll let you decide we can cover, but how to use AI to generate new searches and new work. Again, I don't know how much you want to cover on that, but if anyone wants to dive in on that one.
I don't want to give away secrets, John. Go ahead.
I was going to say we all wish there was a way to that would be an effective tool, but I'm going to guess that all of us are all relationship oriented. We've all been doing this for so long. It's an interesting question in terms of whether or not there is an opportunity in the future, but I haven't thought through it well enough to even consider something like that. But it's a really fascinating question.
Well, here's a related question we had on our list that might focus it more on sort of getting more quantitative at the calibration phase. Adam, maybe we'll start with you, and then we'll go around if AI can help at that phase as far as winning more deals.
Yeah, so like when you're talking calibration and say you're kicking off a search with a client, what we do is the solution, the application I was talking about earlier, we call it Calibrator, and it's dynamic scorecarding. And so what it allows you to do is use all the different parameters of a typical scorecard and essentially turn the knobs and see how that affects the overall membership. So that can include things like geo. It can include things like the sector, the end market sector they have experience in. It can include roles. It can include a whole range of different scorecard parameters. But the other main feature of this is it allows you to flex on those and see the nudges I was describing earlier, which can allow you to consider step ups. One's vice presidents of FP&A who are ready for the CFO seat, for example. The AI filtering allows you to take a look at those. And so very, very useful in the calibration phase with a client because it allows them to understand that, oh, that perfect unicorn candidate that they're looking for, who is in seats at scale, in the right sector, in the city they want, you've got a potential target list of one. But if you're willing to flex on some of these parameters, you get a much broader view of the talent pool. This is really where I see AI shining for us.
Awesome. And Jared or John, any extra comments on that with SmartRank or any other approaches you guys have used on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think not to get super specific, but in general, I think that because we use tech and AI so well, I think what it enables us to do is spend more time on each pitch. And so I guess what I'll say is maybe in the same amount of time, do more. So you can actually do a level of pre-search work that was hard to do before, because before it would take much more time. Now you can actually prepare more thoroughly. You can have a thought partner, right? AI can be your thought partner before you get started. Just have a conversation with AI about what the scorecard should look like, what they should be looking for, that kind of thing. But then you should be able to do way more in a smaller amount of time. So you can do, like I said, pre-search work, just things that if you want to spend an hour per pitch or 2 hours per pitch or 10 hours per pitch, you can get way more done in that time and have a higher quality pitch is the general answer, I'd say.
Excellent. Okay, well, we have another question here. Some of these are a little bit on the edge, but here's kind of, I guess, a layup. But are you using tools like ChatGPT? Have you purchased private platforms? And what guardrails do you establish for your team? If anyone wants to chime in on that one.
I'll say when I do these AI sessions for our clients, they ask about this every time, about compliance and how to be careful. I think but it's not just AI, it applies to any software you use, right? You have to have the right data policies in place, security policies in place, make sure they're understood and clear and enforced. So I'm not sure it's specific to AI, but in general, it is super important that you do AI, I guess, especially so, but that you know what software people are using, it's vetted by you, it has the right compliance, the right settings are on there. So to ChatGPT specifically, you do have to just go in and change the settings in some cases. I think now it's changed over time, but I think on the enterprise plan or the team plan, they now do default to not training on your data, which I think is a good thing. But initially when we signed up a while ago, I think I had to turn that on. So I'd say in general, I think it's just good to be careful, but specifically I would say you have to know the settings of the software that you are using, especially with AI where they are desperate. And I think John Adam made these points also, everyone's desperate for the data. So you have to make sure they're not using it because everyone wants to train it. But it's not just AI, right? Even we've been testing CRMs and other tools like that. Everyone wants access to your data these days. So I'm actually, in some cases, we signed up for software recently, and I had to manually send an email to the company saying we opt out of using our data for your training. It's not an AI company, but everyone these days is looking to get whatever data they can. So I'd say make sure certainly your legal and compliance team is coaching you through that, but someone should be on top of it.
Okay, excellent. Let's go back to some of our official questions here. Future of AI in search. We touched on this a little bit, but if you want to go a little deeper, if AI helps target the shortlist faster, do you see your firm going deeper in assessment, behavioral, and fit methodologies in the future? Let's see. Jared, I think you opted in for this one. If you want to start pick that up.
Yeah, I don't want to be too repetitive, but I think a lot of the point of these things is it saves you time on the other stuff, right? So it may help with assessment, it may help with some of these things in the future. And I mean, things are coming out already. You can choose to use them or not to use them. I would say we're not using a lot of them yet for assessment. But the main thing is that because every single person saves time by using tech and AI to do the data entry, to do some of the research, to help to filter candidates or things like that, we all have more time for the more value creating work. And so I don't think we may take on a little more work, but I think it more goes to serving our current clients better. And so the answer is yes, I do see that that's where the time will go. We'll save it in the places where the value wasn't as much created, and we'll spend it in the time where we really do the references, the background references, the assessments, all those kinds of things is where I would expect, and it's already happening. Which we have a spreadsheet where we went through and I asked everyone how much time are you saving from these different tools we built, and we went tool by tool, and people are saving hours a week from this technology we built. And they say, I don't know where their time is going. Maybe they're on the golf course, but they say that they are having more time for client calls and for pitch prep and winning business and things like that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, I think the positive opportunity is the human to human part we've all talked about, right? The less time you spend looking at 10 different data sources and merging and solving discrepancies, the deeper you can go. Seems like a natural unlock if we really dial that in. So that makes a lot of sense, especially in such a human realm like, finding executives that could fit at a company.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one, and not even sure how, so I'll just throw it out there. It's kind of like if AI has shifted the preference process. It says, have you identified any new trends in terms of the persona that clients are looking for top leadership seats with the growing use of AI in business and some things being automated left brain? Are your clients starting to look for different types of leaders than the pre-hire, or are they still looking for the same types of leaders, but just, using AI? So in other words, has it shifted preferences, or are you still seeing people still want, the same types of executives?
Well, I think we all would agree it depends on the role, right? So if it's a technology role, a product role, then sure, those folks had better have been steeped in AI and ML, for that matter, for the last at least few years. If it's sales or marketing, sure, to some degree in terms of how they do their jobs, and the ability to improve those roles. But in terms of the real use of AI or the real experience in AI, from my experience, it's been the CTOs, the CPOs, Chief Technology Officers, Chief Product Officers, and the like.
Excellent. Adam, I think that.
Yeah, echoing what John said, it was well expressed. The kind of the guide or the way it's captured for us is that most definitely in the tech end of things, so CTOs, CPOs, et cetera, more than 80% of the specs we get are including AI as a core requirement, right? The proven track record with understanding and adopting AI and all that goes there. But I'll also say that in the other roles, kind of the trend, even if it's not a technology role, they're looking for people who are AI curious, is a phrase that's used. So the idea that they're willing to embrace and experiment with it and figure out ways it brings greater lift to their teams and expands capacity and that sort of thing. So every single role in one way, shape, or form has been touched by AI.
Excellent. Jared, want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think that's all well said. I think that, and it applies the same way that we hire at our firm, in that we're generally looking for still great partners, associate partners, EA researchers, all those different roles, with the slight tilt of now you need to be more open-minded to the change and more agile and more tech capable. And I think that is, the job descriptions aren't changing fundamentally, but as part of the conversations and the scorecards and the alignment with the client, we have to make sure that this person can help us adapt through this period, right? So it becomes a factor in a lot of these jobs, even though the job is very much similar, is changing in that one way that AI is going to change these businesses. So they may still need their CEO to do most of the same things, hit the same KPIs, but they also do need someone who can handle the change as it happens.
Excellent. Here's another one. How would you recommend initiating a firm's engagement with AI in the search process? What controls do you recommend creating initially, and what legal risks should you be mindful of? A little bit of a minefield, but I think it's a rapidly changing landscape between national, international, state, a lot of different angles on that. But yeah, anyone want to chime in on that one?
I think it's a lot of questions. I'll just give one small tip to start with, and then maybe people have better answers than I do. And I'm going to stick to the first of those several questions. I think starting narrow helps a lot. I think certainly having someone to take the lead and try to own this thing and try to own the education and the cultural things and those kinds of things. After that, though, I try to start with some small win, right? Whether maybe it's buying HelloSky, maybe it's some other custom thing you can do, maybe it's rolling out ChatGPT. But I'd really try to get a small win that gets everyone used to this being the culture and this being the thing that we do, and then seeing the value pretty quickly. Because from there, and this goes to the adoption question earlier, from there, the rest of the stuff will be much easier. But you've got to get people on board right away and get some evidence of, like, here's the thing we built and it's doing, versus, and I think maybe either John or Adam said this before, it's there's so much hype about AI, and people love to talk about it and say, we do this, we do that. You can get lost in that. You can get lost in all the things we could be doing, and it's marketing language. You really want to be concrete with, here's the thing that it made better for us. This saved us an hour a week. This improved our quality in this way, as a starting point.
Excellent. Anyone else want to touch it?
Yeah, I'll add to that. In addition to what Jared was describing there, I'd say the other thing is to set up your guardrails from the outset. So, for example, we have a bright line in the organization where no client proprietary data will be input into an AI system, and that would be using it for modeling or learning. Okay. So we want to make sure that that feed is never going out, no proprietary data. You just want to make sure that's crystal clear to the team from the outset, and that systems are configured that way, the team's behaving that way, all those sort of things. That framework must be established.
Excellent. Yeah, makes sense. It's interesting, for us in this space, I think there was a recent federal mandate that says states can't put state laws of superseding federal guidelines. So it's obviously rapidly changing landscape in terms of that. I know California and New York, for example, require you to post compensation. Other states don't, but executive search tends to not have active applications. It's more like private, openings. So it's a very different world, but certainly rapidly changing landscape to keep an eye on.
And we're not an industry. Obviously, you get the Silicon Valley culture of let's move fast and break things. That's not our industry, right? We can't be breaking things. So we have to find a way. You can't not do these things because you will fall behind. So you've got to find a way to make it work. But you also can't be going too fast and breaking things. So it's certainly a line to walk.
Absolutely. It's, I think for staff job searches where they post job openings, there's a recent New York Times article that they're getting bombarded by AI generated applicants, but even worse, a lot of them are fake. So,
right.
A whole different world. At least with executive search, they tend to be private and you tend to be doing your own sourcing. So different challenges, but at least, not so much of that happening in that realm. Yeah. Excellent. Let's see, for the next section on future of AI and search, touch a little about on this as far as whether you're going to go deeper in assessment behavioral fit, and what does the search firm of the future look like. I think one theme has been embracing and empowering more of the human-to-human connection. Does anyone want to chime in on that? I think, Jared, you made some comments on that.
Yeah, and I think anyone who says they know what the future looks like is they're lying, confused, something like that. I think there's anyone who said they know where we would be today 12 months ago would be in the same position. It's just hard to know, right? I think the main point is you have to stay on top of it. You've got to be reading things. You need people who do own this at your firm who can try to stay on top of it for you, or to find someone who can do that, because you are going to want to stay with it. You don't have to be the first person, but you don't want to be the last person either. So I don't know where it's going. I certainly have my own hypotheses about AI agents and assistants and things like that. To your point, at some point, maybe we'll go too far where it's AI talking to my AI talking to your AI, and who knows how weird it gets. But I don't know. What I really care about today is, to my answer before, how can we use AI today to, in a compliant, ethical manner, move our business forward, save us time, improve quality, improve speed. So again, I'm always happy to talk about where I see the future in the robots and the AIs. But overall, I really think staying focused on how can I use it today practically is just so important.
Excellent. Adam or John, any additions on that topic?
I'm happy to weigh in. So one of the things I've been reading a lot about, hearing a lot about, is the use of AI for virtual interviews and sort of the screening initial interviews with candidates. And this can range from, a lower level candidate applicant who is, say, interviewed by a chat bot, and their responses are used and parsed and then somehow fed to a recruiter, all the way up through, these sort of virtual AI entities that are interviewing on a video interview, what have you. I've heard a ton of buzz around this. Number one, I do not see it ever happening in our particular niche and where we serve. It just is not an approach that we'd ever take. But I also have great concerns overall about what that is going to end up doing to the entire, human resources, talent acquisition process. It to me feels like we're going to be leaning too heavily into relying on AI to be making decisions that humans ultimately should be making. Again, repeating what I said earlier, we should let humans human, and the bots stick to what they're good at.
And I think it's a great point. And I don't know the answer to this. I will say that at this point, I'm sure a lot of us get sales emails, cold sales emails. I assume everyone is written by AI. And I don't want to say it makes me feel disrespected, but it does make me less value that outreach, right? If I knew a human took the time to write it, maybe I'd pay more attention. Now it's just spam, spam, spam. Maybe that says something about me more than AI also. But I will say there's something still to that human connection that is really important. I don't know. I'm all for tech and using it. I just think there's something weird about, hey, candidate, jump into this AI interview. It just feels weird. Again, maybe it's the old-fashioned me, but there's something that still feels weird about that. And to Adam's point, I don't think we're anywhere close to that at the C-level. Even the more junior levels, though, it still feels weird to me. So that's just a personal thing that maybe I have to come to terms with.
Absolutely, John.
Well, I was just going to say that there would have to be some kind of a major societal shift in thinking about the privacy of executives and what they do and how they're compensated, how they do it, in order for this to go much further than it is. And again, the how data would have to be released in some way, I think, for there to be a sort of takeover of AI into this industry. Is it possible? I mean, anything's possible, right? But it doesn't look, hopefully, likely in the next 10 years. But we'll see. It's going to be exciting.
And to the point before, who knows where it goes? I think socially today, I'm not sure a lot of us are comfortable or ready for some of these things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll touch on that guardrail because I've received fake personalized emails. Like I wrote a book on augmented intelligence and I got this email saying, "Oh, I really liked your book and I like this chapter." And it was clearly not written by a human. And that's 10 times worse than just not even mentioning that.
Yeah.
And so, in an area like executive search where everything's based on trust, I think, having fake emails go out is not going to build that trust and relationship. So I would.
Yep. And that part, unfortunately, I do predict just going to get a lot worse. I mean, it's getting worse by the day. It's unbelievable how much that stuff comes in. What we need to see is the use of AI to stop that stuff from coming in any longer.
Yeah. I think to go to the future a little bit, that's definitely going to happen, right? It's already happening, right? Google and things like that are already filtering with AI. But to get really somewhat futuristic, or maybe who knows where it goes. But I actually think that at some point people will be human signing on the blockchain that I as the human wrote this email. So there's going to have to be something that pushes back. So maybe it's AI filtering, but maybe it really is a human wrote this email. I, Jared, am confirming that I wrote it. Maybe there's some way technologically to know I wrote it.
Yeah.
But I bet you that's going to happen at some point because there'll be too much data. There'll be too many emails going too many directions to not find a way to filter out the ones that someone wrote actually took the time to write. And I can just see some piece of software that does enable that at some point.
Absolutely. So some interesting themes have emerged here. Definite opportunities to quantitatively improve sourcing, but yet keep the human on the communication parts and the assessment parts, and let people do what they do best. So I think that's a good opportunity to wrap here. I want to thank the panelists so much for joining us and sharing all your insights and wisdoms. And I think with that, we will wrap. Thanks everyone for joining as well.
Thanks,
for
Alex.
having us.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.